Hiro is an average high school loner who seeks solace in video games to escape his mundane life. He often gets bullied by his classmates because of this, but his life takes an extraordinary turn when he stumbles upon a hyper-realistic VR MMO, which blurs the line between fiction and reality. One fine day at school, a faculty corners Hiro, bombarding him with the dreaded career talk. Annoyed by this, he decides to buy the latest video game to release his frustrations on virtual enemies instead of sorting out his real-life problems. On his way to the gaming shop, he is confronted by two familiar bullies from his class who demand money. He hands over the money but realizes in the shop that he gave them more than intended, leaving him short on cash to buy his pre-ordered game. Heartbroken and wallet broken, he walks home, feeling as though life just pulled off an epic prank on him. The universe takes pity on him and guides him to a shop selling old VR MMOs. After exploring the shop, he asks the shop clerk, Riona, for the game. To his surprise, the clerk turns out to be a beautiful, fully grown woman who laughs at him, deeming the game childish. He realizes the truth in her words, remembering that the earlier version was the best. She tricks him with her charms and lures him into buying a super hardcore full-dive RPG game for adults that stimulated all 5 senses of the player. Realizing it's not the game he wanted, he asks for a refund, but she denies it and gives him her number, offering to teach him the game. Fair exchange, I guess. He falls for her persuasion and leaves with the hyper-realistic game. At home, Hiro plays the game on the console, and as he enters the game, he is instructed by an angel to defeat the Demon Lord and save the fictional world of Aberdeen. He realizes that the game uses virtual projection based on a scan of the player's body, making the experience incredibly realistic. He wakes up inside a cozy virtual house, surrounded by breathtaking scenery, and marvels at the awe-inspiring graphics. He's so captivated by the virtual wonders of the game that he accidentally bumps his virtual self into a chair and discovers that he can feel the pain as if it's real. He then meets an NPC, a girl named Alicia, who claims to be his childhood friend. She asks him to help with the apple harvest, and just then her brother, Martin, appears. Hiro finds the graphics impressive, and Martin gives him a virtual apple that tastes incredibly realistic. Hiro is reminded of the angel's words and says he will head to Flora Castle. However, this shocks both Martin and Alicia, who think that he has gone crazy. When Hiro is about to leave the house, Martin tackles him, saying he can't let his friend commit a crime. Thinking Hiro has amnesia, he tells him that their town is surrounded by a giant moat and goblins to protect the citizens, and all the residents are prohibited from leaving the city, with no one allowed to enter from outside either, except for special envoys. Hiro dismisses Martin's warning, believing he can handle the goblins easily. However, Martin attacks him to prove otherwise, and in the chaos, Hiro accidentally causes Martin's demise while Martin was eating an apple. Desperate to revive Martin, Hiro asks Alicia for healing herbs, but she angrily points out that herbs can't revive a person, and becomes erratic, demanding justice for her brother's death. Fearing the consequences, Hiro flees the house, with Alicia in pursuit, and finally manages to escape from her to a quiet alley. Suddenly, Riona appears in a fairy avatar and informs Hiro that she is only visible to the players, not the monsters and NPCs. She asks him how he has fared so far in the game, but when she sees his necklace, she is mortified. She tells him that the necklace gives a title appropriate to a player's game status, and his title reads as Best Friend Killer. Hiro insists that Martin's death was an accident and asks Riona how to reset the game. However, she tells him that it's game over right off the bat, and there are no do-overs since the game has an autosave feature that stores his play history on the hardware. In other words, he can't simply buy the game again to start over. Instead, he would need to purchase a new console to restart the game. Hiro doesn't want to get a new console as it would cost him $90,000, so he asks her for a return. But Riona refuses, stating that the store has a strict non-refundable policy. She reveals that the game, Kuwain Quest, is essentially a dead game with only a few players left, including someone named Jinji, also started the game in a similar situation. She suggests that they go talk to Jinji for advice on how to proceed further. She then asks him to check his pocket, and he finds his starting money of $30 inside. She suggests that they go buy him cheap clothes to disguise himself from the city guards who are now actively searching for him, with wanted posters of him throughout the city. They go to a clothing store and decide to buy an old gray robe that is priced at $15. However, upon seeing him, the shopkeeper recognizes him from the wanted poster as a fugitive and demands $25 in exchange for his silence. Having no choice, Hiro hands over the money and walks away. Riona suggests that they go to the casino to find Jinji. On the way, she explains that they are in Ted, also known as the Closed City, where trade with other towns or castles is prohibited, and leaving the city without permission is severely punished as exurbance. Suddenly, Alicia arrives and introduces herself as the fruit knife wielder, attacking Hiro with a knife that ended her brother, Martin. He tries to apologize to her, but it is of no use. Riona tells him that Alicia's speed is unusually high and urges him to run, explaining that Alicia and Martin would probably have joined his quest in the game if not for him ruining his chance by finishing off Martin. He runs to the forest, with Riona following him. He feels exhausted and asks her about it, and she tells him that it's because of the game's realistic reproduction of fatigue, complimenting him on his running. He gets a new title, Running Best Friend Killer, Fleet-Footed Amicide. He tries to log out, but the save screen doesn't appear, and Riona tells him with horror that it probably means they are still in combat. Proving her right, Alicia suddenly appears and continues to attack him, injuring his hand. He feels the pain as though it is real, but Riona informs him that the pain in the game is set to be lower than in real life, as if it's any consolation. He shouts at her, saying that it is not reassuring, and proceeds to run. Riona starts punching Alicia repeatedly in the eyes, allowing him to escape and get back to the real world. The next day, he gets a call from Riona, asking him to continue playing the game despite the pain it inflicts. At school, Hiro shares his experience with his friend, Taka, and they laugh about it. Taka tells him that he should stand up to the bullies, and that if he keeps playing video games, he won't earn any respect. At home, his younger sister, Keed, complains that he was being loud and annoying when he was playing and suggests that he should get back to running and not play video games late at night, creating a nuisance for others. Annoyed, he logs back into the game and finds himself in the same place where he logged out yesterday, experiencing pain from the previous day. However, this time, he discovers a realistic medicinal herb inside his pockets. He tries poking the herb to relieve his pain, but nothing happens. He repeatedly pokes it, wondering how he should consume it, when suddenly a bulky man appears. The man calls Hiro an NPC, and he deduces that the man must be Jinji. It turns out to be true, and Hiro excitedly shares that he is a player as well. Jinji rubs the herb on his hand to stop it from bleeding and informs Hiro that the pain should relieve in a few days. They go to a casino, where Jinji offers alcohol, claiming it's like cola and won't have much effect. Hiro asks him if he, too, faced a similar situation at the start of the game and asks him for advice on what to do next. Jinji tells him that the stats of a player in the game reflect their real-life physical abilities. Hiro realizes with shock that he needs to work out and become strong in real life to succeed in the game. Jinji then mentions a man named Kamui, who cleared all the levels with ease and was known as the Eternally Invisible, the Never-Bested Adventurer. Jinji then reveals his own title as not human, heartless, and exposes Hiro's identity by shouting to everyone, making Hiro respond that Jinji indeed is heartless. Hiro is shocked when the city guards arrive instantly and arrest him. He realizes the game is only realistic when it wants to be. When have the guards ever arrived within a couple of seconds in the real world? Jinji wishes him luck at the interrogation and tells him not to accept his crime. He reveals that he had served 13 years in prison and is now on parole, collecting money from the guards as a reward for revealing Hiro. Hiro scoffs at Jinji for continuing to play this game even when he gets arrested and tries to escape. But Jinji catches him and strangles him before handing him over to the guards. They take him to the city square, and people start throwing stones and pumpkins at Hiro as a punishment. He remembers the angel's words and tries to convince the guards to release him, claiming that he is a hero and that someday he will be summoned by the royalties to save this world. The guard, irritated, informs him that many prisoners have already tried this tactic and ignores his plea. Suddenly, he sees Alicia on the rooftop, with one eye covered and holding a knife. Scared for his life, he urges the guards to lock him up in jail quickly. His wish is granted, and he soon finds himself in a jail cell. Frustrated, he tries to break the walls, but it is futile, so he proceeds to log out of the game. To his horror, he is unable to do so, and the game informs him that he can't log out in the middle of an ongoing event. Hungry and desperate, Hiro shouts and screams for help, but it's of no use. He suddenly feels the urge to pee, so heads to the latrine to relieve himself, frustrated by how realistic the game is with its unpleasant smells. As he's about to do so, he is startled when he sees what appears to be Martin's ghost. Martin accuses Hiro of breaking a promise they made under the Kinnara tree and blames him for his death. Confused, Hiro can't recall the promise, and Martin warns him that he'll haunt him until he remembers. Martin starts tormenting him by coughing up red liquid all over him, leaving him unsettled. Hiro screams for help, and to his luck, a girl named Mizurisa comes to his rescue. She introduces herself and brings him to a red room. Mizurisa suggests that they are going to have some fun, and just then the game sends a warning message saying he is about to experience intense stimulation and asks if he wants to proceed. Thinking that he is going to engage in some adult activities with Mizurisa, he agrees. She proceeds to cuff his hands and legs and informs him that she is the Inquisitor and is going to torture him. Thinking that this is some kind of role-play session, he gets excited. But to his horror, she takes out a saw, and he realizes that she was serious when she meant to torture him. He begs her not to, but this only encourages her. In distress, Hiro calls for Rona's help, and to his luck, she appears, claiming that she had lost track of time while watching a series. He scolds her for not logging into the game sooner, but in the end, he's relieved to see her. He explains the situation to her and asks for her assistance. However, she shouts words of encouragement and tells him to endure the torture. Only then he will be released from his crime. Scared of his fate and unable to hold his bladder anymore, he wets his pants. Riona is slightly disgusted by this, but Mizurisa gets very excited and praises him. Suddenly, a guard enters the room and tells her to release Hiro. She reluctantly lets him go. Riona tells him that he has discovered a new trick in the history of the game avoiding torture with a special wetting yourself command, much to his embarrassment. He logs out of the game, much to her annoyance, and swears he will never play the game again. He wakes up in the real world and feels relieved to realize that he didn't wet himself in reality. The next day, he does warm-ups, preparing for a district running competition, while his sister wishes him luck, but his confidence is low. Taka joins him and points out to one of the opponent players, Mori, who defeated Hiro in a competition. Taka tells him that this is an important meet, and there will be lots of important people watching. He goes to the restroom, where he meets a retired famous athlete called Mike, who inquires about his incredible performance in short-distance running when he was in middle school, and then tells Hiro that he is expecting a great performance from him and Mori before leaving. The competition is about to start, and Mori tells him that he should take this seriously, as the winner might be featured in an article by the famous athlete. Hiro agrees and starts running when the starting gun is fired, but he falls behind other players and gets frustrated. Determined to win, he starts running faster but accidentally trips, falls on the ground, and wets himself. When other players come to check on him, they realize that Hiro peed in his pants, and everyone proceeds to make fun of him. Feeling humiliated, he rushes to the restroom and washes his undergarments in frustration. His sister Keed tries to console him, but he shouts at her and walks away. Mike witnesses this and tells him that he was awful, emphasizing that mental strength is crucial for runners, and mocks him to change his pants. Later at home, Keed asks if he was playing the game the previous night and tells him that because of him, she couldn't concentrate on her studies, leading to an argument. However, their mother interrupts them, and he explains that he decided to sell the game because he found it to be very bad. Keed mocks him, suggesting that he is quitting because he can't beat it, and calls him pathetic. The next day at school, the bullies approach him, but he hands over some money and walks away annoyed. He doesn't stop when his teacher asks him again about his future plans. As he is heading home in annoyance, Riona calls him and asks him to come to her shop. At the shop, he hands the game over to her and tells her that he wants to sell it. She asks him why, and when he tells her, she laughs at him and asks if it's because he's now known as the Amicide who had an accident. She then asks if he knows about Kamui, a member of the Tokyo Metropolitan Assembly who successfully completed the game. He recalls Jinji talking about this legendary player. She shows him a website developed by Kamui, where he posted his walkthrough of the game. She asks him to see the site for himself, and he comes across a post suggesting the player train their body with 500 push-ups and sit-ups a day, run 5 kilometers, and buy dumbbells. It also suggests the player to win without fighting unnecessarily. He watches a lot of the videos, but Kamui keeps insulting the players as if they are morons. Hiro gets very offended and starts shouting at the computer like a madman. Out of nowhere, Riona hugs him from behind and tells him that with the help of these tutorials, he can advance in the game. She charms him and expresses her desire to marry the person who beats the game, other than Kamui. Falling prey to her seduction, Hiro goes home later and logs into the game right where he previously left, in the red room, having peed in his pants. Soon, Riona joins him in the game and a guard, covering his nose with his hands, asks Hiro to hurry up as the captain of the city guard. Tesla is waiting for him and asks him to keep his distance. He leaves in shame when suddenly Misa tells him that she would like to resume their session later and refers to him as her wonderful bedwetter, adding to his further embarrassment. Hiro goes with the guard to an underground passageway, which is used for transporting prisoners, and hears screams echoing in the underground. After reaching the outside, the guard informs him that the mansion belonged to Queen Governor, the ruler of the closed city, and the head guard, Tesla, resided there as well. He notices that the day has arrived quickly and curses the game for only using realism when it is convenient for it. Inside the mansion, he is greeted by Tesla in the dining room, who asks him to sit down. But he hesitates because he doesn't want to cause further embarrassment with his urinated pants. Unwillingly, he sits down, and soon Tesla catches up on his scent. Hiro asks him why he was summoned, but Riona enthusiastically shouts that it is because of his peeing incident. Tesla tells him that he heard Alicia's side of the story, investigated the scene, and found Hiro's fruit knives. He tells Hiro that people intending to end others' lives won't do so with a fruit knife. Tesla then adds that he found a sword at the crime scene that Hiro could have used if he had the intention of ending Martin's life, but didn't do so, meaning all this must be an accident. He announces Hiro as a free man, apologizes for his imprisonment, and asks him to start eating. Hiro begins eating the food greedily, but Tesla warns him of Alicia and asks him to come to him at once if he needs any help. However, Riona warns him that it is merely obligatory politeness, and they step outside the mansion after he finishes his feast. He is overjoyed that he is acquitted and tells Riona that they should head to his house to retrieve his sword. On his way, he sees people cursing and screaming at him, calling him a criminal, and throws stones at him. They start to run away from the crowd and hide behind a house. She compliments him for his speed and tells him that in order to reach his house, they have to cross a bridge. She suggests that they acquire some items, specifically smoke bombs, to deal with Alicia. But upon seeing that he only has $5 remaining, which won't even fetch a single herb, she asks him to find work, steal, or borrow. Just then, an old couple passes by, and she suggests stealing from them as they are easy targets. He refuses and says he will work instead. He visits a shady employment agency for shady people and is offered $100 to whip a naked old man. Hearing this, Hiro gets furious and refuses the job outright, much to Riona's disappointment. This angers the manager, who kicks him out of the agency. Riona, seeing that he has no success with either stealing or working, suggests that they go to the casino and borrow money from Jinji. He reluctantly agrees and goes to the casino, expressing his dislike toward that man. But she tells him that he has no other choice. They meet him, and he appears to be drunk, calling Riona a jiggly fairy. But she pays no attention to this and greets him. Seeing Hiro, Jinji asks if he had endured the torture to have been released from prison. Riona explains Hiro's recent escapades, especially his peeing incident, which leads to an argument between Hiro and Jinji, who calls him a piss boy. Hiro recalls all his accidents, getting angry, and start fighting with him. Riona gets excited and starts cheering. They pull each other's clothes and hair, with Hiro finally getting a chance to deliver a blow at him. He then sits on a chair and proceeds to fall asleep. But Riona wakes him up and demands he hands over his coin as agreed, as he failed to beat up Hiro, who is shocked by this revelation. Jinji hands over the money and they head outside. Suddenly, his title gets updated to Amicide Who Robs from Old Men. He scolds her, as she was the one who made the deal, but now he has to suffer with this new title, and she laughs mockingly at him. They go to a shop called Melissa's Shop to buy smoke bombs. He asks the owner for 2 smoke bombs, and she hands them to him but charges him more than normal due to his time in prison. He reluctantly pays and gets the items, and they go to his house to retrieve the sword. They sneak inside and find the sword, but suddenly Alicia appears out of nowhere. He immediately throws the smoke bomb at her, but misses, and Riona yells at him to ignite the bomb before throwing it using a flint. He frantically searches for the flint, but has no luck. Alicia chuckles evilly and stalks him like a predator. Suddenly, the window is broken, and Misa enters the scene to everyone's surprise and declares that Alicia can't finish off her wonderful bedwetter. Alicia asks Misa why an Inquisitor is helping Hiro, to which she explains that he was cleared of all charges as decided by Tesla, and harming him would mean disobeying Tesla's orders. Upon hearing this, Hiro is relieved and questions Misa how she knew that he was going to be attacked here, to which she admits that she was following him in the hope of interacting with him more. Riona suggests that he consider having Misa join his team. She tells him that she tracked him using the smell of his pee, and Riona admits that he indeed has a strong smell of ammonia on him, enough to gag a person, but she didn't say anything to spare his feelings. Hiro gets embarrassed and scolds Riona for not telling him sooner, when suddenly Alicia tries to attack him. Misa comes to his aid and stops her. Alicia tries to attack again, and Misa starts fighting her in an epic battle of saw and sword. But Misa ends up losing, and Hiro starts panicking. Riona urges him to run away, but he remembers the website's advice on not to fight and thinks of a way to throw Alicia off her game. When she charges forward, he places his hands over her chest. Instead of reacting the way he expected, she grabs him by his collar and tells him that she is mature enough to not get flustered by this and kicks him in his sensitive part. He crouches down, holding it in pain, when suddenly Martin's ghost appears and asks him to join him on the other side. Alicia yells that she can feel her brother's presence and promises to avenge his death. Hiro thinks back to what Kamui said in the walkthrough and decides to give it another. Just as she is about to stab him, he confesses that he is in love with. She stops midway, confused, and tells him that it's too late for him to use this trick. He tells her that it is true and expresses his willingness to marry her and have children with her. Alicia drops her knife in shock and tells him that it is too late and runs away from the house. Riona is thrilled and praises him for handling the situation well, but Hiro feels guilty for not saving Martin and treating the game as just a game. He realizes that Alicia, being his childhood friend, couldn't take all this grief so easily. Suddenly, Misa wakes up and exclaims that Alicia was strong. Hiro thanks her for her help, but Misa affectionately requests if she can chop his pinky, to which he tells her she can't and asks her to leave. He then picks up the sword he came to retrieve and sees it in bad condition. Riona suggests that they should visit a blacksmith, but he ignores this and asks her about the Kanura tree that Martin mentioned, and she tells him that it is just south of here on a small hill. He asks her to wait inside the house and goes alone to the tree. Upon reaching the tree, he calls out for Martin, apologizes to him in earnest, and asks him to come with him. Suddenly, he is taken to their childhood in the game when they promise to be best friends forever. He comes back to the present, and Martin thanks him before disappearing. Riona suddenly appears before him and tells him that she witnessed everything, but couldn't hear or see Martin. Hiro then receives a new title, Best Friend Killer, the best amicide. Riona tells him not to worry as he is free of Martin's haunting and suggests they now take the rusty sword to a blacksmith and get him a new pair of pants. Suddenly, they notice smoke rising from the city and hear bell sounds. Riona tells him that she has never seen an event like that and speculates if the city of Ted is on fire. Hiro and Riona rush to the city, witnessing chaos as people are running in panic in random directions. With some houses on fire, he asks the people what happened, but they simply push him and continue to run in chaos. Riona tells him that people are in panic and they have no time to answer his questions as they have to look out for themselves first. She suggests that meanwhile, they go to the blacksmith and fix his sword. Inside the blacksmith shop, Hiro asks the blacksmith to remove the rust from his sword, but the blacksmith refuses, stating he doesn't have time in the middle of a goblin attack. He further explains that the moat has dried up due to a drought, allowing the goblins to enter the city. Hiro becomes excited about the prospect of fighting the goblins, but the blacksmith tells him to sharpen the sword first using a whetstone and heads out. He proceeds to do so as the blacksmith instructed, but soon gets frustrated with the task and decides to go outside to confront the goblins. Riona warns him that fighting goblins is difficult and that they will lose for sure. Hesitantly, she tells him that if he were to die in the game, something terrible would happen to him, his console, and the game would break in reality. He shouts at her for scaring him, as he thought something much worse might happen to him. She reveals that many people had filed numerous lawsuits against the game company, leading to the game being buried as a supremely bad, full-dive RPG. She advises him to log out now as the goblins are very strong and tells him that they will return after going through the walkthroughs. Before logging out of the game, he asks if he can have a glance at a goblin. Riona agrees reluctantly, and he peeks at a goblin from hiding behind the door. He admires the realistic graphics, when suddenly he notices the goblin approaching a little girl. He rushes outside to help the girl, but Riona pulls him back by his hair and asks if he wants to break his console and game. He tells her that he can't let another person's life end in front of him, even if it is an NPC. Just then, the city guards arrive to defeat the goblin and save the little girl. But the goblin attacks the guards and ends their lives with ease. Hiro begins to panic upon seeing this, and Riona informs him that nearly all players who left the city avoided fighting the monster, except Kamui and a boxer named Xiaohei. Despite this, Hiro decides to help the little girl and asks for Riona's assistance, who agrees to help if he changes into the blacksmith's pants that were left behind. After changing his pants, they plan their attack on the goblin, with Riona invisibly diverting the goblin's attention while he rescues the child and runs. But suddenly, another goblin appears, stopping him on his way. He lets go of the girl and asks her to run, reminiscing about his sister, Keed. However, the goblin knocks him down and runs behind the girl. He chases after the goblin and somehow manages to gain powers, outrunning the goblin and saving the little girl. Riona joins him and tells him that he gained a pro-athlete level of dashing. Just then, Tesla arrives majestically and finishes off the goblins with his thunder sword attack, asking the city guards to take the girl to safety. The girl bids him farewell and goes with the guards. He then gets the title as the Amicide who likes little girls, causing her to make fun of him, much to his annoyance. Tesla invites him to join the city guards, telling him that he will be well compensated. He agrees immediately, despite Riona's concerns. Tesla then asks him to join as soon as he is ready and informs him that the training grounds are on the Queen's estate and adds that he will guide him. Hiro decides to save the game and log out. The next day at school, he discusses the game with his friend Taka. Later that day, after returning from school, he checks Kamui's website for options to leave the city. Option 1 involves fighting with allies, Option 2 is hiding from goblins for 4 days, and Option 3 is joining Tesla's army, which is considered the most awful option with a very low chance of survival. Hiro is shocked by the dangerous choices and the uncertain fate that awaits him in the game. He wonders if this is the time to quit the game, as his chance of survival in Tesla's army, according to Kamui's website, is merely 0.1%. However, the website makes fun of him, saying that his console is definitely getting toasted, causing Hiro to get angry and start shouting at the monitor. The website then tells that in the unlikely event, if the player has earned the title Best Friend Killer, it might increase his chances of beating the game from 0.1% to 0.5%. The website then prompts him to enter the word of the promise as a password, stating that it could take a decade for some people to identify it. He types in the password and Kamui tells him that he is surprised that he survived for this long. It then tells him to endure 5 more days of training, until the second wave of the goblin attack, which is labeled with SS difficulty, and clearing it would lead to encountering the true mystery of Ted. The website urges him to open his eyes and think. Feeling determined, Hiro goes to Keed and informs her that he is going to play the game and face it head-on, refusing to run away like he did with everything else in his life. He logs into the game and joins Tesla as they head to Queen's estate. Riona joins them as well, and upon reaching the Queen's estate, they hear the heart-wrenching cries of people being tortured. As they enter, the Queen introduces herself as the governor of the city and embraces Hiro tightly, leaving him speechless. Tesla then takes him to the training grounds, where he introduces him to the other city guards, including the new recruits, Granada and Palu. With grim determination, Tesla reveals that the goblins has their sights set on the Queen's mansion, and if they fail to protect the mansion from the goblins, then the entire city could be in danger. The group vows to protect the city as the dedicated members of the Ted City Guards. A guard named Bob takes Hiro to his lodging along with the new recruits, Palu and Granada. Inside, Hiro changes into the armor that was laid on his bed and leaves with Bob for the training session. The introduction exercise begins, and he is placed under the guard Amos for training, who was the one who imprisoned him at the start. Then, a soldier girl named Kathy introduces herself to Hiro and praises his bravery for saving the little girl from the goblin. He practices sword fighting with his instructor Amos, and although he struggles, Kathy and Bob cheer for him. Granada then steps in and defeats Amos, causing everyone to make fun of Hiro while praising Granada's skills. Hiro tries to make conversation with Bob and Kathy, but they come up with excuses and leave. He goes to the dining area to eat, where he is completely ostracized and alone. Riona reminds him that he only has to endure this torture for 5 more days, and then he will find out about Kamui's trick to winning this game. He goes to sleep in his room and wakes up late for the training. He rushes to the training grounds, where Amos scolds him for his lethargic attitude and calls him useless, telling him to practice his swings like a man. While practicing, Granada and Palu bully him, saying that he murdered his best friend. Hiro tells that it was just a misunderstanding and that he is not dangerous, but they continue to bully him. Thankfully, Kathy calls him and offers to teach Hiro how to handle a sword. Riona tells him that he is lucky to have Kathy as his friend. She demonstrates how to hold the sword, and he follows her instruction and appreciates her for doing this, and Riona makes fun of them for being close. The next day, Granada continues to be hostile towards him and attacks him fiercely in practice, leaving him feeling pathetic about his life. Granada and Palu make fun of him, saying that having him there is more than useless, and hence he should pay for the privilege of training with them. Everyone starts making fun of him, and he contemplates his fate, recalling his miserable life in the real world. Later, Riona sits on top of his head and tells him that, like Kamui said, this game is going to hyper-realistic and hard to beat. He tells her that although he knew he had to face dangerous foes, he didn't expect that he would be made fun of and bullied in the game too. She tells him to not worry and takes him to the consultation office to seek guidance and help. Once inside, Hiro shares his struggles with the counselor, mentioning how he was dismissed by the instructor and was made fun of by his own peers. He also tells him about being extorted for money. However, the officer remains unsympathetic, stating that it was his fault for joining the city guards without adequate skills and advises him to quit. Frustrated, he comes out of the office and scolds Riona for convincing him to go to that useless officer. Just then Kathy tells him that the consultation officer was not capable of guiding normal people and only healed physical injuries. She then hands him a spiritual symbol and advises him to visit the church. Hiro and Riona follow her suggestion and head to the church. Hiro asks Riona if they really have to pray, saying that he doesn't have any faith. She tells him that this might be another quest, so they better try, and who know this might be an advancement issue. At the church, Hiro confides in a sister about his issues, and she senses negative energies surrounding him and tells him that she is going to perform a cleansing ritual on him. She then leaves to fetch a large bowl of holy water and dumps it on him. She tells him that his body has now been purified and that everything is going to be well from now on. He thanks her for performing the ritual, but sneezes because of the cold from the holy water. He starts shivering, both from the physical coldness of the water and the intense emotions he is feeling. On day 4, Hiro faces more challenges on the training ground and begins to think the cleansing ritual was just a farce since nothing seems to have changed, and he is still getting bullied. Amos calls him a weakling and leaves, while Granada and Palu demand that he gives them money for being so weak. Frustrated, Hiro decides to confront them and challenges Palu, thinking that he could defeat him. But only when Palu starts attacking him, he realizes how wrong he was. He is completely useless against these two. Palu attacks him fiercely, and he drops to the unable to withstand the attacks and surrenders. But Palu keeps going, hitting him repeatedly. Witnessing the brutal scene, Kathy rushes to bring the instructor, Amos, to intervene. Unfortunately, Amos does not stop the bullies and instead leaves. The bullies mock Hiro and Kathy and threaten her to distance herself from him. Kathy reluctantly lies to them that she is not friends with Hiro, and the bullies laugh, making fun of him. Riona joins in the laughter as well, leaving him furious. After they leave, he scolds Riona for laughing with them, and she apologized to him, saying that she will use her holy fairy powers and make things better for him. On the next day, which marks the last day of his training, Hiro hears a commotion from outside his room and goes to see what's happening. He finds that Granada has lost his shoes and is visibly upset. Palu tries to calm him, saying that he can wear the spare pair for now and that they can search for his shoes later. This angers Granada even more, and suddenly, a guard points out to a drainage, and they discover Granada's shoes there. He becomes furious and demands to know who did this. Palu asks if it's the same shoes his grandma made for him, and he confirms it sadly, wondering who was behind this. Throughout the day, more of Granada's belongings goes missing, and he searches for them everywhere. His sword goes missing, and he starts shouting in anger, and the other guards starts gossiping about him, causing him to get even more angry. Palu suggests that they all look for the sword, and everyone helps him in the search. But no one could find it, and Granada drops to the ground, exhausted and sad. Palu assures him that they will search again tomorrow, but Granada leaves sadly. After some time, everyone hear him shout and go inside to see that Granada's sword is stuck inside a crapper. He takes his sword and throws it aside and then lifts Hiro by his collar, blaming him for this, accusing him of doing it out of spite. However, the guard, Bob, intervenes and tells Granada that he has no proof, and everyone supports Hiro's innocence. Suddenly, everyone hears a woman screaming, and they rush to investigate. She tells them that her panties are missing, and everyone wonders if there's a serial thief amidst them. Everyone searches for the missing panties, and one of them finds that it is inside Granada's bag. He brings this to everyone's attention, and the woman blames Granada for stealing her panties and scolds him for being nasty, leaving him shocked. He retorts by shouting at her, and she starts crying, saying how lonely she was after her husband's death. Everyone comes to her rescue and asks him to stop this nonsense. They start shouting at him, calling him a pervert, and say that they don't need someone with a goblin face like him on the team, making fun of him. In the end, his own friend Palu betrays him and joins the others, and Granada sadly leaves. Later at the training grounds, instructor Amos informs everyone that Granada quit the team due to personal reasons, and Hiro feels bad for him. Amos then asks them to get back to practicing when suddenly, Captain Tesla arrives and shows everyone a paper that says Amos was the one who stole Granada's shoe and drove him to quit. Everyone is shocked by this revelation, and Amos tries to defend himself, saying that he did no such thing. Tesla reads out the letter, and according to it, Amos got jealous of Granada because he became better at training than him and asks Palu to confirm if this is true, as he was the one who sent the letter. Amos gets angry and starts shouting at him, calling him a liar, but Tesla intervenes and asks the guards if Amos is fit to be an instructor. Kathy tells Tesla, with tears, that Granada and Palu were bullying Hiro, but Amos did nothing about it. She confesses that everyone, including herself, treated Hiro badly, to which everyone agrees with remorse and starts blaming Amos. They start shouting at him, calling him names, and he goes to Tesla saying that everyone is lying and that he is being framed. Tesla, seeing that they have no proof and that not a single soldier is defending Amos, declares that he is not fit to instruct and relieves him of his position. He then asks everyone to continue with their training until a new instructor arrives, and then proceeds to leave. Amos lies on the ground begging for forgiveness, but no one pays him any attention and gets back to training. Kathy, with tears in her eyes, goes to Hiro and apologies for treating him badly. Soon everyone else, who had bullied him, apologies to him as well and asks for his forgiveness. He kindly accepts the apology and asks them what they can do about Amos, who is still sitting on the ground crying like a baby. Riona tells Hiro that she has something to confess and asks him to recall her promise to marry the person who defeats the game. He nods his head shyly and tells her that he thought she was only joking, but she tells him that she was being serious and reveals that 10 years ago, she met Kamui in the game and admired him deeply for his strength and courage. As he was leaving the city in the game, she ran up to him and asked him to go out with her. However, took a look at her chest and coldly rejected her, saying that her chest is way bigger than a cow's udder, and leaves. Talking about this itself makes her angry, and she starts shouting how Kamui is such a horrible person for commenting on her size. She explains to Hiro that now she seeks revenge on Kamui, and she is going to do that by marrying someone who wins the game. Hiro can't believe someone will have such a stupid backstory and asks her if she is done with her nonsense. But she ignores him and encourages him to be that person by beating this game so that she can marry him and make out with him in front of Kamui and give him the finger together as a happy couple. However, Hiro finds all of this absurd and stands there speechless. At night, Hiro stands in the watchtower and contemplates what Riona said. He wonders how a person can have such an absurd reason for revenge. Hearing what she has to say makes him lose his motivation to win the game instead of the opposite. Just then, Tesla joins him and apologizes to him for what he went through, Amos and Granada. Hiro accepts the apology and asks what he is doing this late at night, and Tesla tells him that the goblins can attack the city anytime from now, and that thought is making him lose sleep. Hiro tells him that he has a feeling that the goblins might attack them tonight, and Tesla laughs at him, calling him an odd guy. He then asks Hiro if he wants to leave the city and expresses his desire that he too wants to move freely around the world once this goblin crisis is solved. Hiro proposes that they leave the city together once this is all finished, and he agrees to this happily. After that, Hiro logs out of the game, as he wants to check the walkthrough for further instructions before the big event. When he wakes up, he is startled to find Keed peering over his face, causing him to scream. He scolds her for sneaking into his room and secretly plotting to end him. She gets irritated and calls him stupid for imagining stuff, and tells him that she actually thought he was dead because he was not answering no matter how much she knocked. When he asks her why she came to his room, she tells him that he was acting strange recently, so she thought she had to check up on him. He becomes happy that she was concerned for him, but she argues that she was not and tells him that if he died while playing that stupid game, then it will bring a huge disgrace to their family. But Hiro doesn't argue back, glad that his sister cares about him and thanks her. This annoys her further, and she throws the game at his face, and he quickly goes from smiling to furious. The two get into an argument and she leaves his room angry. Later at night, he checks the website and recalls that Kamui told him that there is a trick to winning this game. When he tries to see the trick, Kamui tells him to enter his current title as a password to prove that he has come this far in the game. After entering the password, Kamui congratulates for getting the best friend killer title, and Hiro gets excited that he might actually have a chance. When he proceeds to the next section to view the trick, he gets scolded by the website for relying on it for every little thing and to be prepared for his end, and just like that, the site closes by itself. He just sits there shocked as to what happened just now and decides to take the matters into his own hands. On day 6 of the game, Hiro is gathered with the rest of Tesla's men, prepared to fight the goblins. Riona asks if he has prepared his sword, eaten, peed, pooped, and other such silly questions before declaring that he is fully prepared. Tesla proudly stands before the men and announces that given how dangerous the goblins are, those who fight them will receive higher ranks and rewards, before introducing Misa and Alicia as the newest members of the city guards. Hiro is shocked to see the two crazy girls, as if dealing with goblins was not enough. Misa excitedly greets him and asks if he wet himself already today, to which he becomes annoyed and starts shouting in embarrassment, saying that he is not a baby anymore. Alicia greets him as well before giving him the creepy looks. Riona tells him that the women he meets in this game will be his ally when he needs them the most. Hiro gets furious, saying that he is not interested in this harem nonsense, and that he's scared that he might get hurt by the crazy ladies if he was not careful. Meanwhile, Tesla is busy instructing the men on the attack strategies. He informs them that they have evacuated those on the outskirts of the city to the center, but even still many have ignored the evacuation order, so it's up to the soldiers to patrol the city and keep everyone safe from the goblins. Hiro asks Riona if this not the day of goblin attack, and she tells him that this might be an event before to that, assuring him that this might not be that difficult. Just then, Tesla comes up to him and assigns him to patrol the Eastern District, and Riona tells him that it was where Jinji used to be, causing him to get upset. To make the matters worse, Tesla assigns Misa and Alicia to go with for the patrol. Hiro is taken aback and tells him that Alicia has a grudge against him, but Tesla simply smiles and remarks that they must be close as Alicia was excited to see him. Hiro tells him that everything is one-sided, and he is terrified of her, but he tells him to shut up and sees this as an opportunity to clear things up. Hiro, having no choice, leaves with the girls to patrol. Misa tells him that they should do something about Alicia as she is creepy and tried to kill him, but he smugly tells her that she is no different from her and tells her that they both should stay away from him. Misa gets emotional and calls him mean. Riona intervenes and tells him that it's only Alicia who wants to kill him, and Misa's only fault is that she is creepy. He ignores what she said and asks her why they have to go patrol, and she calls him dumb, saying that people become crazy when there is chaos. Suddenly hear a woman's cry and encounters a man stealing the woman's bag and running away with it, pushing aside Hiro. But Alicia swiftly knocks down the thief to the ground and quickly retrieves the bag by chopping off his hands, causing the thief to cry in pain. She throws the bag with a thief's hand attached to it to Hiro, and he tries to catch it, disgusted. Riona tells him that they should return the bag to the woman and consider the hand an upgrade to the bag, causing him to shout at her for talking rubbish. She tells him that he might get a reward if he returns the bag, so he goes to the lady and give it to her happily. But she drops unconscious to the ground seeing the hand, and he scolds Riona for giving him shitty advice. Misa goes to the thief and threatens him to tell why he stole the bag. The thief reveals that the goblins are going to kill everyone anyway, and that some guy ordered him to create distractions, and soon enough they witness more such incidents happening around them. Riona tells him that someone is orchestrating these crimes, and this might be the boss event. Hiro goes to the thief and demands to know where this guy is, and the thief points out to a casino right across the street. saying that the man is inside. They head to the casino, where they find several people tied up by a scary-looking gang. Riona spots the gang leader, and Misa tells him that she will tear off the guy and asks him to rescue the captives. She asks her to help as well, and the two girls confront the gang members. Misa tells them to surrender, but when they don't, she starts attacking the gang. Alicia also joins the fight, and while they are busy, Hiro takes this chance to rescue the captives and notices Jinji standing next to them. He tells Hiro that the men captured him as well and were going to sell him along with the others. Misa and Alicia quickly finish off the men. The boss tells Jinji that he had cheated them, and it's then that Hiro realizes that Jinji was the one orchestrating these crimes. Suddenly, Jinji strangles him and threatens Alicia and Misa to stay back. He tells them that what he did isn't so bad, and this area has been in chaos since the goblins' first attacks, and all he did was create more chaos. Hiro asks him why he did it, and he tells him that he wanted to distract the guards so that he can steal what he wants. He threatens everyone to give him their valuables and leave. Riona thinks that he makes an excellent villain, but Hiro accuses him of playing dirty and taking advantage of their friendship. Hiro gets angry and retaliates by punching him in the stomach and tells the girls that he's going to take care of him. However, Jinji takes out a deadly weapon, double brass knuckles, and proceeds to attack him. Alicia intervenes and takes out Jinji with a single punch, and he apologizes and pleads to be let go. Later, they inform the guards, who arrest the gang members and Jinji. Hiro goes to see him and Jinji tells that Alicia is strong, making Hiro question what happened to Jinji's childhood friend in the game. Jinji tells him that he killed both of them at the start itself, so he doesn't know much powerful they were. Hiro comments that he seems calm for someone going to prison, but he simply tells that he won't as he would get free meals and don't have to worry about the goblins' attacks. After the successful capture of the thieves, Tesla joins him and congratulates him for capturing the thieves, but Hiro denies taking any credit and gives the accomplishment to Alicia and Misa. Suddenly, a warning bell rings, signaling the start of a goblin attack. Just then, Hiro clutches his stomach, experiencing a stomach ache, and rushes to the bathroom to relieve himself. In the bathroom, before he could have a moment of peace, a goblin sneaks in and startles him. Hiro shouts and calls for Riona's help, but she assumes it is related to his toilet business and ignores him. Thankfully, he is saved by Misa, who finishes the goblin in one strike and proudly comes up to him. She admits that she followed him to the bathroom to witness him in action, but saw the goblin sneaking up on him, which made her jealous, and she ended the goblin. Hiro is disgusted by this revelation, but thanks her anyway for saving his pathetic life. She tells him that it's alright and asks if he is taking good care of his sword, demanding to see it. So takes out his sword from its sheath and gives it to her. But it turns out Misa is interested in his other sword and playfully stabs him there. She proceeds to say dirty things to him, making him unsettled and restless. Just then, Alicia arrives at the scene and scolds them for doing nonsense, making Misa angry, and the two start arguing over him. He tries to calm the girls, but they ignore him and prepare their weapons ready to fight each other. Knowing that his efforts are useless, he runs away from them, not wanting to confront another goblin. Just then, Riona comes up from behind him, and he scolds her for ignoring his cries when he was in a difficult situation in the bathroom. She apologizes and tells him that she was going through something. He becomes concerned and asks her about it, but it turns out that she was worried about her stupid split ends, and that's why she was in a shitty mood. This makes him furious, and he asks her if she cares about him beating the game, but suddenly, he has a stomach ache again, and drops to the ground unable to stand. Riona asks if this happens to him in real life as well, and he hesitantly reveals about his accidents in real life whenever he was nervous. Instead of being concerned and understanding, she proceeds to laugh at him like a mad woman. She doesn't stop and makes fun of him, calling him names. He becomes angry and scolds himself for trusting her, but she simply tells him that the game is only being realistic and that he will continue to have accidents just like in real life. He scolds her saying that he didn't actually poop, just that he wet his pants in real life when he got scared. But all this didn't matter because soon enough the game rewards him with a dreaded new title as the Bowel Emptying Amicide. She tries to distract him by making fun of him once again, and after some time her stupid plan works and his stomach ache disappears. She tells that they have to hurry up and join Alicia and Misa soon. They head to the North Gate and join Tesla and the city guards against the goblins. The army has been gathered already and Tesla commands his men to charge at the goblins. The goblin begin their attack as well and tearing the men to pieces and pouncing on them. Tesla fights with his lightning sword attacks, chopping off the goblin's head in one strike. Hiro is amazed by his skill, but worries that despite that, Tesla can't defeat the goblins. Just then he looks to the side and notices Misa and Alicia finishing off many goblins. He is shocked that to witness the girl's powers, and Alicia simply ends the goblins one after another, slicing them like fruits. Everyone around is fighting off the goblins with their amazing power, but he is busy staring at them, knowing too well that he is a helpless chicken and can't do a thing against the goblins. Riona tells him that with the help of Tesla, Alicia, and Misa, he might actually clear this stage of the game without having to do anything. He gets excited that he might actually have a chance to win this game, when suddenly Kathy comes running and informs Tesla that more goblins have entered through the south gate and are heading towards the Queen's estate. Tesla questions how it's possible, and she reveals that a powerful goblin, known as One-Eyed, destroyed the iron gate to the estate. Tesla quickly gathers his men and leaves to the estate. Hiro watches the scene in shock and asks Kathy if she is alright, but she tells him that only a few soldiers are left standing and asks him to join Tesla. Taking her advice, he rushes to the scene and finds the one-eyed demon viciously attacking Tesla's men. He stares at it in shock and asks Tesla about its immense power. Tesla reveals that this is the king of goblins and shares that many years ago, he went to investigate the reports of a goblin hunting humans near the city, but when he confronted it, he was severely injured by One-Eyed and barely escaped after hitting it in the eye, earning it the name One-Eyed. He then orders the transport cage to be brought and proposes that they defeat One-Eyed together and leave the city. Hiro tells him that it's a death wish, but it's too late as he already started to fight the One-Eyed. Tesla clashes sword with it and struggles to hold his ground, and seeing this, Hiro decides to help him, despite being scared. Just then, Misa arrives at the scene, assuring him that he doesn't have to worry as she is there to help. Alicia joins them as well and tells Hiro to not get involved in this fight as it is dangerous. She determined to stop the One-Eyed from harming Tesla, and Misa agrees with her. Hiro is glad that finally these girls came to an understanding and are not fighting each other this time. Riona asks him about the cage Tesla ordered to be bought, and tells him that it might be a foreshadowing that if he survives the One-Eyed attacks until the cage arrives, he might have a chance of winning. Meanwhile, Misa rushes to strike the goblin. However, the goblin knocks her unconscious and throws her down. Alicia tells Hiro that One-Eye kicked Misa in the stomach, and then takes out her knife to join the fight instead. Hiro stands there dumbstruck, watching them fight, and he couldn't make out who is attacking whom. Just then, the transport cage arrives and Riona points out the odd-looking small goblins inside it. The guard informs him that this is part of Tesla's plan, and when the One-Eyed sees these little goblins, it might get distracted, and then they can finish it off easily. Tesla hits the cage and taunts the One-Eyed, causing it to get distracted, and he takes this chance to attack it and throw it to the ground. Hiro becomes super excited that the goblin is defeated, which means he cleared this round. He recalls the Kamui's words from the website and wonders if this was too easy and suspicious. Kamui had told him that once he clears this stage, the true mystery of this city will be unlocked, and that he should be careful and think hard before taking a decision. He suddenly realizes that the sound these little goblins are making is similar to the creepy sounds he heard coming from the underground, which means they were confined and abducted many years ago, which means Tesla had been lying to him this whole time, and he stops him from ending One-Eyed and confronts him about this. He asks if these little goblins were captured long time ago and tells that he had heard their sounds multiple times when he was in the underground. He points out that these goblins' eyes are dull and pale, which means that they have been held in a dark place for a long time. Tesla stares at him in shock that he managed to figure out what happened, and finishes off One-Eyed in one strike. The little goblins cry in pain and Hiro shouts at him for ignoring his request and killing the goblin. But Tesla remains silent and reveals his true nature. He congratulates for figuring out the truth, admitting that Hiro was smarter than he thought. He reveals that he had kidnapped these little goblins 7 years ago, and that One-Eyed was their father. He then proceeds to laugh like a true villain, and everyone stares at him, shocked that he was capable of such evil things. Just then, the iron gates open, and the Queen slowly comes from the estate and joins the scene. She goes to stand beside Tesla and asks him if he killed the One-Eyed, and he tells her that although he did the job, Hiro and the rest found about the kidnappings, but she simply tells him that they can kidnap more little goblins if needed. Hiro and the rest are disgusted by these, and Alicia demands the Queen to explain why they are doing this. The queen reveals their evil plan of using the fear of goblins as a tool to keep the populace bound to the city and maintain control over them. She tells them that because of this plan, the city is now a fully independent territory operating on the same level as a nation. Tesla then proceeds to cruelly explain that goblins are actually quite intelligent, who were once living in their own territory, and they rarely attack humans unless provoked. But he knew how ferocious they can be when they got angry and used it to their advantage by keeping anyone from leaving the city and keep the outsiders away. He then starts making out with the queen, not bothered that the kids are watching them in shock. He then proceeds to eliminate his own men who heard the truth, and Hiro realizes with shock that Tesla is one of the strongest NPCs and the ultimate challenge for him to overcome. He has to defeat him in order to leave the city, which has only a 0.1% chance of survival, like Kamui. Tesla dares him to leave the city alive and proceeds to attack Hiro with his extreme lightning despair sword attack. But Alicia intervenes and sacrifices herself to protect him. He rushes to her side and asks her why she saved him but she simply expresses her happiness at Hiro's promise to marry her and asks him to live a full life for her and Martin. He pleads with her not to leave, but she passes away, leaving him heartbroken and angry. He asks Riona if the NPCs whose life has ended can be brought back, but she regrettably tells him they can't. Tesla mocks her and taunts Hiro to face him, proceeding to attack with his extreme lightning despair attack. Hiro, determined to avenge Alicia, faces him and Tesla sprints at him with his extreme lightning sword attack. But to everyone's surprise, nothing happens to him. Tesla attacks him again, but he manages to defend himself, astonishing everyone. He recalls the advice from the website about the power of emotions and willpower in the game, which would increase his stats immensely. Determined to win this shitty game, he attacks Tesla fiercely with his sword, and Tesla barely manages to dodge the attack, surprised that he is suddenly this powerful. He continues attacking him with determination, and his attacks are so fierce that no one can see his strikes. Riona wonders how he became so strong, it's almost supernatural, when she suddenly realized that his attacks are almost similar to Kamui's. Just when things are going so well for him, and he almost ends Tesla's life by stabbing him, his sword breaks, and he curses the wretched game for being unfair once again. Tesla laughs mockingly at him and prepares to end his life. Hiro accepts his fate and closes his eyes, ready to die. But suddenly there is a huge flash, and he is transported to the Kindra tree, where he sees Martin. He greets him and explains his situation with Tesla and what happened to Alicia, but instead of being furious at him, Martin thanks him for trying his best and not giving up. He then takes Hiro's hand and offers to fight alongside him, and just like that he is transported back to the fight with Tesla. But this time Martin's ghost possesses his sword, reviving it. He manages to shatter Tesla's golden blade with his Martin sword, and Tesla is taken aback with surprise that his sword is gone and calls him a cursed blade wielder, earning him the new title of Sword User, Amicidal Blade Wielder. Tesla laughs at him and throws away his broken sword and pulls out another one, prepared to use his ultimate lightning attack. But Hiro is not afraid and reassures Riona, saying that he actually feels confident for the first time in a long time. He has been pushed to his limits and is going to attack him with everything he can. In the blink of an eye, Tesla vanished from sight and reappears before him, and he sees him clearly despite Tesla's speed boost, preparing to counter him. Then, suddenly, he wakes up in the real world, and Riona explains that when he was about to counter Tesla's attack, the queen came from behind him and attacked. After that, they tortured him and ended his life in the game, leading to his game and console being broken in real life. Riona, through the phone, asks when he is going to play the game next, and that he can't give up. She tells him that she will give him a new console and game for free, as he is going to be her future husband. She adds that she sees great potential in him, as only a few manage to get close to beating the beginning of the game in years. He gets up and notices another prompt from Kamui's website that reveals a secret technique for players who don't want to quit and want to restart from where their life ended in the game. However, to activate it, he needs to insert the broken game into a new console and complete the process within 10 seconds. He gets excited with this new information, as he now has the chance to both win the game and save Alicia at the same time. He tells Riona about the secret technique and what he plans to do, asking for 1 month to prepare himself and restart the game, to which she agrees. He then takes out his jersey and goes for a run, thinking about what all he could change if he gets to start from an hour before his life ended in the game. During the preparation time, he undergoes some significant changes. He gets back to running and working out. Determined to beat Tesla, he starts practicing and improves his physical strength. At home, Keed tells him that she is glad he is running and getting some exercise instead of playing a dead full dive RPG, and makes fun of the game. One day at school, he informs his counselor that he is still not sure if he wants to study further or work, but promises to give some thought into his future and come up with a decision soon. Taka comments that he has changed so much in the recent days, and it's not just his body but his character as well. Just the bullies from his class arrive and start troubling, but instead of being scared like before, he finds new determination to stand up to them. He recalls what Tesla did to him and starts banging the table in anger. The bullies, seeing him in rage, proceed to leave, deciding not to make fun of Hiro anymore. Finally, the day for restarting his game arrives, and he prepares himself for the next login, determined to restart and win the game.